So let's talk about scaring players. Now, they ask me, why do I think character death is really important to the game? And I think it's because it goes to psychology. It helps create real fear amongst your players. And I'm going to really explain to you why the discussion around scaring players, like say, oh, what monster would scare your player? You can think up a dozen monsters that would be the scariest to encounter. I could scare my players with a goblin or a bunny, right? And there's a reason why I can do that, and I don't need the gruesome monster to make my players afraid. And that's really what we're going to look into tonight, is getting real fear out of your players. So to understand how to really make players afraid, it's not going to be the monster. It's not going to be all this. Look at real life. What are people afraid of? They're afraid of a possible negative outcome. Now, in tabletop role-playing games, this is why I think character death is so important to the game, because that is a threat of a very negative outcome that can create fear, real fear in the player. In real life, if you go outside and there's two guys you work with, you're fine. You take the garbage out, you go back to work. If you go out, you don't know who those two guys are, and now the way you view the entire situation becomes one of caution, becomes one of maybe fear. You take a basic thing, instead of putting some gruesome monster out in the alleyway, you're scared of just two guys you don't know. But what are you really afraid of? And this is where, once you understand this about humans, you can use this psychology in the tabletop role-playing games that you run as a game master. You got to understand that guy is afraid of the really bad outcome, which is, again, character death. Now, how do you establish fear with your players? Well, first off, I'd say to any game master, I'm fair. I'm not a cruel game master. I don't look to beat the players or kill the characters. I just am fair. What I mean is I'm very cold about this. If the game rules has your character die, they just die. Now, I'm old school. I'm second edition. I don't believe in a meat grinder game, but I always tell my players, don't get it wrong. My game can be a meat grinder. If you play it terribly, you can die all the time. But if you play it well, unlike some of the older games, there's survivability to the end of the campaign. I've had many groups come in where they have to lose entire groups, total party kills for 2 or 3 parties until they get a party that lasts, right? That keeps going through to the end of the campaign. Right, so my game could be a meat grinder if you play it terribly, but again, I don't want it to be a meat grinder or guaranteed meat grinder if you played well. So it's, even though I was a bit ease on that, I never had players that came into my game that think I wouldn't, apply character death appropriately. I'm very cold on that. My players knew that about me. It's like, if you fuck around, you will die in his game. And then another thing I would do is be unpredictable. A lot of game masters out there say they're unpredictable, but man, you got to really do the actions. Like you got to grind it out in the game as a DM. Be unpredictable at a certain part, have something blow up, even if it's somewhat ridiculous. Then the next time, it just doesn't. Then another time you can have an encounter that's going to happen in the city. They go around to the same situation the next time. It doesn't happen. You're unpredictable in a way of making sure you do enough actions to really get that in the mind of your players, that they can't trust what they're coming up on, right? And then they got to know, on top of not being able to trust what they're coming up on in any situation, they got to know that you will just let them die. Now, like in real life, you have now created the thing that they're afraid of. They're afraid. Now, players will give this away. Most players are scared of character death. And you know this because there's popular ideas out there of avoiding character death. I'm like, why is that? It's people in the hobby are giving themselves away. They're telling you what they want to avoid, what they're afraid of. But that's a clue for a game master, right? Oh, that's what you're afraid of. So it doesn't matter what the monster is. I can have players in a cabin late at night, and I could do a couple little knock noises outside. Now, you might think that's not much, but if you're in my game and you're an experienced player and you hear that noise and you know all the possible outcomes of that noise, could be death, could be nothing, could be a tree branch, could be the most villainous thing you've ever encountered in your life. It makes you stop and think. I've had players just about crap themselves in moments like that in my game, and I haven't had to put in a monster or nothing. A little noise just gets everyone up in arms, frightened, right? Just by me saying they hear a noise, or even if they just see a goblin. Experienced player in my game, like say it's like if you meet an experienced player in one of my games, and they're with a group of new players, I've seen this happen many times, where the group of new players will hear a noise and they're like, okay, our characters want to go check it out. And the experienced player's just like, dude, I want to go. And they're like, why? And he almost gives himself away because it's like it's his game. That's why I want to go. It's his game. I hear a noise. I want to get the fuck out of here right quick. And now, I get good players when I have experienced players in. So I explain why your character wouldn't go. And my players will give in. They'll just be like, yeah, my character would go. I made a character that's cocky enough to go. It's just yeah. And they'll do it. They're cool like that. But the point is, I know they're afraid for a reason. And I haven't had to put in a gruesome monster or anything. I can hint at a noise. And it's because I simply supply character death in a cold way. On top of that, I am unpredictable. I make sure to be that through actual game action in the game. So it's like, here, something blew up. The next time it doesn't. This went this way. The next time you run into this trouble, nah, man, this guy, he's going to let you pass, no problem. Huh? And you really want to get that in the minds of your players. That's how you make players feel fear, is the fear of the outcome of what can happen. It doesn't matter. Like, it's a bonus if the monster is gruesome and they're afraid of the character death. Now I can use that easily. I've had many monsters where I know my players are like, they're scared because it's not just a fight they can run into and just, you just survive, guaranteed. No, it's like it's his game. Fuck, we can all die here. This can be a complete total party kill, but we could win. And he set it up like that. And I set it up that they can win, survive the whole thing, and they know that. But they'll also know that they can die. And that's a crucial thing they need to know. Meaning, I don't purposely make a meat grinder, but like I said, if you play terrible, you're likely to lose your character in my game. If you play well, the game is way more rewarding when I run it. And survivability. It means the game actually rewards you for good play as your character survives. But I just need always say you establish with your players that you will run the character death scene. Easy. And if a game avoids character death too much, I think they're avoiding the fair and you're going to have a hard time. That's why you'll have players running at things that they should have been afraid of. And there's a lack of experience. You have to give up the whole feeling of fair as a player and just sort of pretend to play along with it and start having fun. Like, oh, cool, I'll do this. I think there is something taken away, right? I know it's a game on that end, but it's more than a game. We've always talked about that. And I say part of it is actually feeling what your characters are experiencing. I like the chaos of combat. And I like that to be felt to a degree by players. I like the brutality. I like it to be chaotic, but players get used to the chaos and adjust as players naturally. But it's still chaotic, and it's meant to be that. So if that new player comes around, that experienced player can watch them go through the chaos of combat, which in my game, I hope you're just like an experienced soldier after a while. Like at first, you're ducking behind the thing, but later on, you're sort of just standing up, knowing what will hit you and what won't. And you got that cocky attitude of like, yeah, we're good, kid. Just you stay behind the rock. I'll take care of this part. I like guys like that. I've had a lot of military people play my game, so you can imagine I've had a lot of guys with that exact attitude in the game. It's a beautiful thing to have, where at least they start the game initially being humble and being humbled by the reality of it. But once you get used to it, you get in that sort of soldier world, right? But yeah, I hear so many discussions about what monster will scare players, and I've seen many players just not be afraid no matter what the image is. No matter what miniature you brought out, unless they really are afraid of character death. If not, you'll hear some slight playing along. Oh, wow, that's really big. I'm afraid. And then they'll move their character forward right away. It's like, fear is something you show, right? That's a giveaway that a player is just playing along. Fear is something that will show in your actions, not just in your words. Like, if they're afraid of the thing that you put out there, you'll know it when they don't move their character up for the fight or something. Like, when they're just, like, so cautious that they're just like, that can't be what we're fighting, right? But no. But there's some dead serious in what they're saying. You'll feel it from their words and actions. I hate when players try to play along with something. You just don't. If you're not afraid of it, if you're not afraid of it, and your characters wouldn't be, play it for real. Because in some parts, I've seen some players get so used to playing along with other game masters that when they join my game, I have no expectation that they're actually afraid of the thing. I actually expect their characters to not be afraid at all. But I'll see several players trying to pretend to be afraid, and I'm like, oh no, you're doing that thing where you try to go along with me trying to scare you, right? Yeah. Don't. Like, I'm confident that if I want to make you afraid, I'll make you afraid. Like, I'm very confident. And I'll know when to go with it to get you there. Right? I'll time it. I'll know I've manipulated you, and not in a bad way. Remember, it's a contract between players and game master. You're letting me manipulate you with information, right? That's it. And you want me to understand these things because you know I talk to players all the time. They want to be afraid. So I'm like, don't get mad at me for the way I talk about this or tell you I know the psychology. This is what you want. You want to be afraid of the thing for real. I hear all players are always disappointed that they're not, say, in many cases. Where I'm like, I'll make sure it's not disappointing. I'll bring you to the point of fear. Because I know the basic element that makes you afraid in real life works in the game. So there has to be a threat that's as cruel as, say, death in the real world. And players give it away. Character death is something that does ink them, right? It's something they want to avoid, many players, at all costs. And that's true. That's been true about the majority back in the old school. It's true about the majority now. It's not going to change either going forward. That's why I found a balance of, hey, if you play terrible in my game, yeah, you can fall into a meat grinder, old school D&D style of game. But if you play well, there's a survivability there. That was my attitude as a second edition, old school Advanced Dungeons and Dragons Dungeon Master back in the day, right? Still my attitude now, no matter what game I'm running. I always think a game should reward you with, if the game is meant to be survived, which even Dungeons and Dragons is, good play should reward you good opportunities at surviving. Simple as it is, right? And if you play terrible, that's when the game should penalize you with what we call the meat grinder. I just oppose games, and I've seen them for years in the old school, where good play is still a meat grinder. I'm like, so you can't, like, no wonder these guys don't invest in the characters. And why is that something being taken away from the players, even sort of manipulating players into thinking a backstory doesn't matter? I'll tell any player, no matter who it is, the ones that think it's important, the ones that don't. Whenever you drag anyone over to certain areas like fields where, say, the debates, it's not going to be acknowledged as the same argument, like, say, in a shared world. Every player there will be asked to contribute, make something, invest in the world. And every player, the player that likes the backstory and doesn't, will enjoy the investment they have put in. But what is that telling you? What's that communicating to us game masters in this hobby, in the tabletop role-playing game hobby? It's telling us that if we take their backstories, like a page like I do, and you apply it to the setting or to what's going on, and you allow their father, their parents to be part of it, a brother or whatever, you allow them to affect the setting around them in these ways that you build in from a backstory, they like it. And even the guys that say they don't care for a backstory like it. I think many players are just convinced that it's no point in caring about a backstory because of how characters die. And I talk to many players when I get it grind down to the bottom. Hey, I know you keep telling me you don't care about character death, but could we just get to the honest part? You don't care because the game opposes you caring. Like, you're playing a game where it's a constant meat grinder, so caring about a backstory becomes meaningless, right? A backstory is only going to be more meaningful in a game where there's survivability for that backstory to be applied, for that character to experience what's going on, blah, 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 right? I get it. The second you get over to a game, even you old school guys, and I've seen this in shared worlds for years, from Third Fire to the Black Marches to even the Bro OSR stuff you see going on now. It's obvious that players like to make something you put into the world through their backstory, right? It's been obviously true about the majority for years, right? It just doesn't go well to old school gameplay, so there's an agenda to degrade this element that most players like. Like there's a deceitful agenda because there's a minority of old school guys who just want their thing to be the thing. And if that element is important to the thing, that's a problem. They don't have that element. So what they do is they degrade the element of backstory or the meaningful part of that. But the second you get away from a meat grinder game where survivability is a thing, suddenly that backstory becomes a very important piece, especially once you realize through, say, watching things like a shared world that every player up and down, the guys who say they don't like the backstory and the ones who do, all seem to like to invest in the world through creating stuff for the world, that their character's going to encounter. It's so obvious. That's the element you get from giving a backstory and having that applied to the game, right? So game masters who have denied that for years, I hope they're starting to learn how important that is, right? Now, I don't know if I'm going to go a full hour tonight, but we're going to get into the second topic now. So I hope the first one was very important. It's basic, but it's just an element I wanted to hit on. How do you scare players? It's not through monsters. It's through the fear of the negative outcome, right? And then being unpredictable is important because now they don't know what's up in a game where they can be put down brutally by a game master, not out of cruelty, but out of the fairness of the game master not holding back in that area of the game. You get that set with the player and you'll have all the fear. You won't have to run a scary game. They'll be scared when they see the shadow after that. They'll be scared when you tell them they hear a noise down the hallway. They'll be afraid because it will be you. And they'll know a few things about you when you say you hear the noise. That noise can be character death. They'll know that about you and they'll know that's serious. That noise can be character death. And they can't guarantee what that noise is because you have established unpredictability. They don't know if the noise is character death. So when you tell them that they hear a noise, I don't care how soft you say it, they will be afraid. They will be scared. Every player will be on edge. There'll be an edge, right? That's what you want. The psychology of human beings, you understand in the real world. Human beings get scared of little tiny things. We're afraid to be hurt. We're afraid to die. So in a tabletop role-playing game, to recreate that fear properly, it's not the scary-looking monster. The only reason the scary-looking monster looks scary to us is because that scary monster could kill us.